Right. All right. We have quite a lot of people in the room, but I wanted to first check if we have any operators. Um, if you could do a hand raise or let me know that you folks are here. Thank you. Thank you. Neat. All right. There is another Etherpad for this, so the shared document would not help. So I'll end up sharing that Etherpad onto the screen. But you feel free to just take over. I mean, you can look at the Etherpad on your computers and add stuff there. No, we're using the same call, Amy. So just the Etherpad's different. So I'm going to just share that.
That's a shame.
No, no, you can't. No, you can't. I tested it a couple of times, like for cross-project sessions, and that's not possible.
Okay. Didn't mean to interrupt you. Sorry. Just.
Yeah, that's why I asked about us switching.
That's already by default.
Sure. I'll take it unless someone else really wants to. So I used to be involved in running the in-person ops meetups, and we did quite a few of them, and they were successful. And we were in, Japan, Mexico, London, New York, I think Vancouver, but and Berlin a couple of times. But it just fell apart, because of the pandemic and because of travel budgets, and I think probably also because video conferencing is now cheap and effective. The last one that we did was Berlin in 2022, I think. And after that, we just didn't get offers to host because you can't do a meetup in a coffee shop. It's meant to be a collaborative working session. You need Wi-Fi, you need power strips, you need a projector. Like, it's not expensive, but we just couldn't even get that together. So there was just nothing for a while. And then I had this idea that there's this whole popular talk radio stuff where there's a host and then there's guests, and then people tune in to hear about a topic they want to talk about, like probably politics or sports mostly. I just had this idea of ops radio, and instead of us getting on a plane and going to Berlin, which by the way I like doing, we just get on a Zoom call effectively and talk about OpenStack. So we tried it, We've done, I don't know, 7 or 8 now. And we seem to have particularly some of the newer community members who are just getting started with OpenStack, interested in finding some community. So I think there's like a generation that kind of built their cloud, and they're already at scale, and they've solved some things. They didn't need the ops meetups as much as they did when they started, many years ago. But the new generation, maybe they come in because of digital sovereignty or possibly just ESX migration. But they really want to talk about, like, how are you doing HA? How are you doing upgrades? Like, the old questions are new again. So I host it Fridays, and Ildiko kind of rallies the troops and then gets it recorded, and it goes to YouTube, and we have a decent amount of engagement. And it's just an hour's commitment once a month, so it's pretty cheap, right? It's pretty easy. So we talked about things like Rabbit, we talked about HA, we talked about last week, or last time, I should say, we talked about using OVN. And that was a challenge for me because we don't even use OVN. I see some comments in the chat. I hope everyone has the Meetpad chat open. There's also an Etherpad chat. It can get very confusing. Spot says the Friday morning part is the hard part. She's further west than us. So that was just trying anything to get some community back together, because I mentioned that the in-person things were expensive and travel budgets aren't there. And obviously it's a time commitment, but the other online things are also extremely fractured. We noticed that people aren't sure if they should go to IRC, LinkedIn, Reddit, Mastodon, Twitter. There's some Slack channels, so there isn't one place where the operators hang out. So another idea of mine was, well, Meetpad is officially open dev infra, and it's just like Zoom, really. I think the only feature missing is it doesn't have like a background, a blurred background. So you're currently seeing in my where I work. And I think we're getting somewhere, right, to try and pull the operators together so we can actually discuss things. And what was the purpose of it in the old days was to bring the operator's voice. For instance, difficulties with upgrading was a big one, because we can all build a cloud on some computers once, but running it over years and upgrading it whilst holding on to the assets and the users and keeping the applications running is, the day two challenge is huge. So that's what we're doing with that. And there's some comments on the Meetpad chat if you want to have some color. I know that you know where that is, Gavin, but I find that when people are on these things, they're not very used to Meetpad. They actually don't know where all the windows are. They're not seeing all the actions. So, is that helpful? Does that put a sort of set the context? Yes. So someone could probably find the link, but it's a stable URL, and we posted it to Matrix. We posted it to Mastodon. It's on the Ildiko's posted it to OpenStack Discuss mailing list as well. So that has the material that people have managed to scribble down whilst in this meeting for the last probably 7 or 8 sessions now. There's exchange of information there. Another thing that we covered, for instance, was live migration performance, because we run our apps on our cloud 24/7 now. When we have hardware maintenance, we just move the VMs, and we've made live migration a lot faster with attacking it on 3 fronts. And so there was interest in that. Very briefly, the 3 fronts are: we proposed some OpenStack changes in Nova. We documented some Linux tuning that helps, and then our particular Neutron implementation is Calico, and we had some work with the vendor to reduce some overhead there. So we do live migration in a few seconds, and the apps don't lose their connections or really have an outage. So ESX does well there. So people who are trying to swap out ESX for OpenStack were interested. So that's another thing that we discussed. And then in the old days of the ops meetups, we discussed things like there was a problem if you're running an older cloud that's maybe 4 or 6 generations old. because they were deleting the documents off the website. So you'd say, I want to look at OpenStack Neutron, and it's just not there on openstack.org. It had been deleted. And there was a discussion, why do you need this? And it's like, well, we run, our cloud is back, back version, sure, but it's in production and we need to upgrade it. We need the documentation, and that was actually resolved. I won't go into all the details there, but so operators things are an important topic separately to how does Nova work, how does Neutron work, how does OVN work, et cetera, et cetera. And we did bring some of those issues, I think, up into the daylight, if you will, and there was some discussion and some useful work done. There's a lot more to do, of course, but that's a summary. Ildiko shared the Etherpad. Thank you, Ildiko, in the Meetpad chat there, so if you want to take a look. So, the idea is to capture information there, share it with the other operators, but also when there are things that the developers maybe are interested in, they can see that. We're still kind of working it out. Like, we do this, but we don't have a formal way of capturing it and forwarding it. Like, I guess maybe we could send I think Ildiko does a great job sending the link to the discussed chat, but other than that, I don't know if it's in front of non-operators very much, like OpenStack developers, but I think that's probably one of the reasons we're here to discuss all this is, is this useful and what should we change? I feel like I'm the only one talking now, so. Just as a reminder, I always say this, this is meant to be a discussion. I don't know how many people on this are just holdovers from the last session or how many operators, but we're trying to kind of pull a discussion together here.
Yes, just quickly chiming in on this topic as well. So I think it was Sean who mentioned in the chat that like the recordings, we record all the ops radio hour sessions, or well, trying to, and those recordings go up on YouTube. And I heard from people who are catching up on the recordings, because if there's a fixed time for a meeting, not everyone will be able to make it at the time of the meeting. And I also usually have a very brief recap of the meetings after they happen, and then point to the notes Etherpad, which usually by then has a link to the YouTube recording. So it's also a question to this group that if you are, like Sean, using the notes or the YouTube recording to catch up on a few things, like, is there anything we could do a better job on taking notes? Or I don't know, is there a standard follow-up question we should ask an operator when they report a problem that would be helpful for the developer community to catch up on things quicker? The ops folks also have a matrix channel now. I think it's called OpenStack Ops, and always trying to encourage people to hop in there more and have semi-synchronous communication and follow-up of the meeting and mailing list discussions wherever it makes sense. So it's also a question if we can do a better job on the things that we are already doing, or is it useful, or is it not? So food for thought.
I must say, I'm glad to hear that people look at the recording. So that seems welcome feedback. It seems like the people who turn up appreciate it, and they have questions, and we get some answers. So my plan, such as it is just try and kind of keep building it. The fracture problem is real. Like when I joined the OpenStack community, everyone said, "Oh yeah, just hop on IRC." IRC is banned in our network 100%. Like really hard to get to. And if I use IRC Cloud, my laptop goes into some kind of like malware lockdown mode. Like it's not even an approved website. So Matrix is a little easier. But this is working. Here I am in my office, and I've got an interactive text document and video conferencing if I want. So I'm hoping to kind of keep on getting more audience to know that this thing exists, and if they have questions, to drop in. So
yeah. So just one quick comment. So I've been watching them since you kind of restarted and you've been posting them, and one of the reasons I'm doing that is to understand what the pain points are that operators bring up commonly. One of the learnings I've got from it is a lot of the discussions we spend a lot of time talking about in developers between like, when will we make OVN the default? Should we move the Linux bridge agent to Neutron? Those kind of things. Those are conversations that from a developer side, we had 3, 4, 5 years ago. But on the operator side, there are clouds that are only starting to have that conversation now, and they're trying to figure that to navigate that path. And that means a lot of the context we had at the time of like how this worked before has now kind of just evaporated out of our brains as developers. When operators ask for a question of, okay, I'm on Linux bridge, how do I move to ML2 OVS or ML2 OVN? At a community level and in all of our CI and stuff, we did that transition, I want to say in 2020, 2021. And the releases that were tested on the stable branches that did that have largely kind of aged out, etc. So a lot of the experience has kind of been lost on the developer side. So do I have to answer to operators, like give them advice on how to do that transition now? But that was interesting.
Yeah,
this is where the spread was.
So I do think that that gap between where developers are with nightly builds and all that, and where production clusters are, is a huge problem. With my operator hat on, I'm tempted to say, like, if the OpenStack deployments out there didn't move, does it really matter what the code says? Because it's not actually hosting workloads. But I'm not actually making that statement because I understand both sides a little bit. I think what the operators need to do is to try and catch up a bit, to be more current. So then when they're talking to you about some feature, it's not like years ago. It might be 6 months ago or something. We have made some progress on that. But I will say that I say some progress because we only just got rid of our Nova network-based clusters. I mean, that was extremely long tail. Our new deployment is more than 10 times bigger than that was at its peak, but we just got the last workload off the old clusters within 2026. We're now all Neutron, at least. And I think that one of the ways to make that gap smaller is to help users understand, that a lot of progress has been made with upgrades and documentation. For instance, Slurp upgrade process came out of people saying, I do my best, but I'm now 6 releases behind, and that's terrifying to validate, because I can't do 3 upgrades and find that it all corrupted my database and I'm dead. Like so I do think there's a really important thing here to actually draw them together. I remember many, many years ago, we did one in New York. We had a meetup, and I remember a very, very strong, very good developer, very nice guy, just saying to the room, what's taking you so long? And people told him, like, this is what I've been doing the past year. We moved every machine. We upgraded every operating system, and it was just all this work that is, maybe self-imposed, but like, that's what that operator was doing, not winding forward to OpenStack versions or 4 OpenStack versions. So I think that the conversation between operators and developers is, is kind of validates the whole project here. I mean, if something's in CI/CD and it's wonderful and it's not being deployed out there and hosting production workloads, it's a science experiment, right? So I hear what you're saying, John, and we try to catch up and we advocate other people to catch up. But one of the things that we also did was said it's a safe space. You could admit that what version are you on was always a really fun discussion.
Yes,
because people say, "Oh my God, I'm on version A," and someone say, "Well, I'm on P."
So I didn't want to call out any particular deployment, but I was aware that you had just moved from Nova Networks. But that's actually very poignant because there's a mailing thread which should have had ops on it. It didn't actually, about whether or not it's time to finally remove the Nova Networks fallback from the OpenStack client. Right, and I was very aware that there are clouds that legitimately still have Nova Networks, and if we were to remove that in a future version of the OpenStack client, even though there's been no testing of that for a very long time, our production clouds, where if they're installing from PyPy, you now need to tell all their users, sorry, you have to pin it to below this version, or you won't be able to talk to the production cloud. So even though Nova Networks has been gone in Nova for a very long time, any of the user-facing things like the SDK and the client do need to be very conservative about dropping that support. And that's obviously a tension of, it's a maintenance burden. But like, it's a conversation I think we need to make sure we loop the operators into a little bit more on the mailing list when we do that post, like make sure there's ops there. And if ops are not on that mailing list, maybe reach out to the operator hour thing or get a little bit more visible when we're actually having those community discussions.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we do need some more structure in the radio thing. I mean, I can imagine there being official questions from the developer community, like, does anyone still need Nova Network in the support in the OpenStack client, or those kinds of things? Not saying that we would resolve the issues there, but more like, here's a question. Please go to the mailing list. There's a thread about it. Please chime in there. That's very important, because if nobody speaks up for it, then they can delete it and be happy. But if you really need it, make your voice heard. So I'd be happy to have an agenda item, which is like, incoming questions from developer community, and then maybe the operators can also say, hey, developer community, what about so-and-so issue? I don't have one in mind right now. That might be good. Not saying that 1 hour a month is the I don't know, like the only channel, but we do seem to just be getting the people who are fresh and need some guidance and community, and they represent organizations coming in, especially digital sovereignty and should we say commercial virtualization solution escapees. I don't actually want to name vendors. So yeah, and if the question is how would you do that, well, the Etherpad is linked on the current Etherpad that we're working on. Just have at it. I think that's put questions in and maybe take questions out if we have some. Gautam, are we going to work through the topics that are here, or was this all yeah. I just don't want to make this a sort of a rehash of the ops radio, because this is a different audience. The second item is about that, but you had questions to kick off, like feedback to the community when you hit an issue. How do you decide whether to work around it when you file bugs? How do you get contributor attention? Does anyone want to respond to Gautam's questions? It's difficult because I can't highlight in the Etherpad that's being streamed here. Well, I'll take a go and see if we get people to join in. We mostly do have to get workarounds these days. We do have a vendor. We work with Canonical, and we talk to them, but often we have to have some kind of fix sooner. So it's a blended thing where we often talk to them and then do a patch. but we try and make sure that the patches go away when the proper better fix comes. When you file bugs, do you get project contributor attention? We used to get no attention, but I think that's perfectly fair because, and you may have heard me say this before, we had the who the fuck are you problem. Just some guy on a mailing list, why should you care, right? And we realized that we need to be more high profile, and we do have some contributions flowing now in our name rather than through our vendor. I think, Sean, you've actually seen some from some Bloomberg people. And thanks for all the feedback, by the way. So we're actually, slightly better than an anonymous drive-by contributor on the mail list, but we need to go a lot further. And I say this to other operators, everyone's busy. If there's some report of a problem on a mailing list from someone you never heard of, it's very hard for the developers to know the subject matter to even to sort of chase that further. Are we open to contributing changes directly? We've started, and we think that's very important, and we try and tell other operators if they have, developers even to try and do that. Is there anything that TC or project teams could do differently to make your life easier? That sounds like I would point. Something you want to point fingers at? I think communication has just been difficult since the old thing of there being ops sessions at the summits and PTG fell apart, and that's what I'm trying to fix. So it's not that the TC should do something or didn't do something. It's just that the thing that boggles my mind is people say, like, can you ask the operators? Like, I don't know the operators. They're not a team, right? It's not like there's a Nova community. The operators are just, there's some people who work at Bloomberg, and there's some people who work at this company and that company. They don't know each other, right? So unless we actually find a way to kind of draw them in, because quite often they're not on OpenStack Discuss. I can say that. They're too young to really be comfortable with IRC, or their company doesn't allow it. There used to be OpenStack operators mailing list, but that disappeared. So now, the one thing that I think maybe is a little difficult, and this is just an idea of mine, is OpenStack discusses a lot of stuff. And if you're new to OpenStack, you have to subscribe to that to be on the mailing list. I don't know whether it's really suitable for a brand new beginner who's got a lot of questions. It's sort of like full of the experts, right? I like the separate mailing list, but I understand that there were too many mailing lists and that wasn't working either. So I don't know what the answer is there. Fungi would like to participate. Hey, I'm not. Go right ahead.
Hey. Yeah. Yeah, that was so really the biggest driver for combining the ops mailing list and the developer mailing list was that we had a lot of operators asking questions on the operators mailing list that they hoped someone would answer, and all the people who knew the answers were subscribed to the developer mailing list and not the ops mailing list. And so when people asked operational questions on the developer mailing list, they actually got good answers, or they got told to go ask on the operators mailing list because this is a mailing list for developers. And we really were suffering from a rift between people who considered themselves contributors to OpenStack and people who considered themselves users of or deployers of OpenStack, who weren't really mingling or interacting. So by uncomfortably cramming everyone onto one mailing list, yes, it does result in a high volume mailing list, and that probably also has some drawbacks of its own, but it did result in us getting the people who had the questions and the people who had the answers in one forum, where they would hopefully, and it seems like that did happen, actually see and respond to the questions.
Yeah. I understand. It seems done for the right reasons. I just have come across people who are not on the mail list. I see John would like to speak. No one's holding the mic, John. Yeah. John Garbett said he'd like to. Yeah, maybe you're on mute.
That's probably better, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to press. I said I just pressed the wrong button. I was trying to hit the thumbs up button, but yes.
All right. I will say that we do mention the OpenStack Discuss mailing list in the Ops Radio. Ildiko consistently says that people should look at it, should subscribe. So maybe we can actually get the word out that is, maybe it's a high volume, but people are pretty good with tags. Become known on the mailing list, and you'll have more sense of community with the developers and the people who know more about certain subject matter expert areas of OpenStack. So perhaps we'll do better at getting people back on email. Obviously, that's where most discussion can thrive. Someone put their hand up again.
Yeah, that's me. Just one other note related to that. So a few years ago, we upgraded to a newer version of the mailing list software we had been using, and it now functions as a web forum. People can post to the mailing list from the web interface and follow the mailing list there in their web browser instead of in their mail client or in their inbox or whatever, if that is a more comfortable workflow for some particularly newer users.
That's cool. I haven't actually tried that myself. I'll have to try that. Another thing that we did try or discuss was Slack. There was some excitement about Slack for a while, but it turns out it sucks unless you got lots of money, because free teams delete all your messages. I can't blame them, of course. So I heard that the cloud native people even were seeing the bills to Slack being kind of high, and that's that's a sign, I think. I remember when we did the Mexico City Ops meetup, the local community was just in Slack LATAM in Spanish. So it was very hard we didn't even know that when we were trying to set things up. So it's very hard to stay in touch with them. They weren't on IRC. So the fragmentation that I mentioned is very difficult to overcome. So I think we've done the first two main points of Gautam's talking points, which I think are good. We talked about yeah. So taking them one after the other, operation docs and tooling. I think the fact that it's a repo but is dormant, I think I have to take some responsibility for that. There were a bunch of people at one of the summits, I think it was still an OpenStack summit, who said, yeah, we'll work on these docs, we'll rewrite them. And then I think that those people just had role changes because they just never actually turned up. So it was like a meeting of one, and like I guess we're not doing this then. So if there's stuff there that needs urgent action, like it's about to be deleted or something, I can take a look at the crowdsourcing and new rewrite of those things just didn't happen. Large scale SIG, when I think I've joined a few times a few years ago, that was very good. Public cloud I don't do. Scientific is not kind of my area. I see some comment there about the operations docs and tooling. Part of the problem there was the discussions that we did have were never ending because there was an infinite number of automation tools for installing, KOB, OpenStack, Ansible, containers stuff, on top of Kubernetes, or Kubernetes on top of OpenStack. The vendor-specific ones like TripleO, and what was it, Charmed OpenStack, and now Project Sunbeam from the other big Linux vendor. And that is another problem. There isn't, just a recommended way and another way to install OpenStack. There's like an infinity of them. What was the one from Mirantis? Was it Crowbar? I can't remember. There was supposedly something from Walmart, although I don't know if there was much there. Someone summarized what I said. Yeah, there's some interest, but then it didn't materialize. I think I put my hand up and said, I'll make this better, and I never did, so I hope I'm not seeming to blame other people. So if that is, non-compliant with the CI/CD system or something, yeah, I'll see what I can do. Yep.
Yes, just sharing the information that I have. So to my knowledge, the large scale SIG has been open to maybe fold their activities into Ops Radio Hour. That's my last information that I have. Need to circle back with some of the folks. I'm not sure when they held their last meetup, so I need to check back on that. But last time I heard they did have interest with consolidating efforts. The scientific SIG, they have a Slack channel in a workspace, and they seem to be specific enough group that it seems like that they are okay with their current setup. I did talk to the public cloud SIG, and for now they are also happy with I think they're still holding bi-weekly meetings, and they're happy with their setup, so they did not want to merge. And what else? I think these are the ones that were on the top of my mind. So we reached out to some extent, not trying to be forceful, but rather just offering the opportunity to see if people want to consolidate efforts. And then in some cases people were open, and in other cases it seemed like that keeping up some separate activities was more of the preference. So one thing that we are looking into is how to make sure that information is up to date at various places where it can be discovered by people, so that they know what is happening, what is still active, and if they want to come to like an Ops Radio Hour session, how they will find up to date information and those kind of things. That one is still in progress, I believe.
Ildiko, it seems to me that we should probably put the links about these SIGs into the Etherpad for this Friday's Ops Radio, and just say, hey everyone, thank you for joining this 1 hour meeting monthly. But there's more focused subject specific groups with, great structure, documentation. Here are the links, and maybe that'll send some people, because I really do feel like some of the people who turned up for the Ops Radio are just brand new to it all, and it's drinking from a fire hose, right? There's all this structure, all of these social media outlets, as I mentioned, IRC, mail, but the SIGs I think are still going well in the case you mentioned. So I'll round some information up and put it on the Etherpad for Friday. We can make that a topic, and particularly for the OS Ops repo, the operations guide, HA guide, we can at least see if anyone wants to take a look. I think it's more than a one-person volunteer job, but something we could talk about. I think we have 15 minutes left, and some other good topics here. Who put eventlet removal? Does someone want to
I think Sean has his hand raised before we move forward.
So just before we go on from the social media and like available of information, do you know how well known the OpenStack, I think they call like OpenStack Dev Days or OpenStack Info Days live stream? So like Amonica recently just did one on all of the improvements they did to networking. We had another presentation on, you know, this is what was released in the last OpenStack integrated release. There's also the super user material on site that used to be published. So do you know how widespread the knowledge of that these things exist is within the Asia community?
Well, again, I don't know the community because it's, unless they step forward, they could be anonymous forever. The ones who've turned up to the radio recently, I would say many of them would have no idea about those things. So if you were to drop some material about that in the Ops Radio Etherpad, I could talk over it on Friday, because they seemed really, really hungry to just find all of what's available and then see what meets their needs. So
what's in the back
I
of
am
mind?
personally aware of the of the super user. I didn't know, has that gone away?
It still exists.
Yeah.
What was in the back of my mind is like, would having some kind of landing page like ops.openstack.org that would make this a little bit more discoverable help? Because I think finding out about the ops radio out and finding out about these SIGs and all that kind of stuff, it requires more effort than it probably needs to. You have to know that they exist and search for them. So I don't
agree.
know if
It's very hard because we don't know our audience and we don't know where they hang out. But there is an operators page on the OpenStack wiki, and it actually has links to all of the previous events when they were in person and all of the Etherpads. But it probably doesn't link to the resources you do. Well, not the streams anyway. So I can definitely try and round that up and put it on, and then get people be aware. On the Etherpad, at least, I think I can edit the OpenStack wiki operators meetup page as well. So yeah, that what I can do is try and put it down on the Etherpad and the wiki, and then share it at the thing on Friday, and possibly also on the Matrix channel. Ildiko goes and then repeats the information very helpfully onto OpenStack Discuss and IRC possibly. But I don't think any of us can just go to every single place where there's, you know, like I haven't been to the OpenStack Reddit. The one on LinkedIn disappeared and it came back. Like it's so fractured. One of the things I was encourage people to do is sort of decide, can we decide on fewer places to actually just share information? You know, because I think a team like Nova can actually have like, this is what we do, right? But the operators are just people out there, right? Using free software. I mean, like it's like saying, could you ask the Apache users what they want? It's like, how would I do that? You know, I think it's a little bit easier than that, but yeah, I'm just trying to give a flavor of how fractured it is. But that's good, Sean. If you have specifics, you could drop it on the Etherpad that we're working on right now. I don't actually know the streams you mentioned myself. We all have blind spots, I guess.
So they posted to the same OpenStack Foundation email channel, YouTube channel, and
Okay.
they, you know, so if you know that channel exists, that's one of the ways to get it. I'm just not sure that operators ever really get told, you know, this is where we're going to tell you about all the new features, here the upgrade things, you know, that kind of stuff in a single place that's discoverable. Like they exist, but you have to go to the wiki, you have to go to this, that, and that. So one of the things I observed was a lot of the new operators are asking, how do they do X? We're really just trying to understand how did the different projects relate to each other and how did they get them working, etc. The information that might appear obvious to a developer who's been working on this for a long period of time, but if I had to sit down and tell you where to find that, I think that would actually be kind of hard in some cases to actually say this is actually where that information you're looking for is.
Yeah, it seems like a giant compendium start here page of everything with just a bunch of links, but like telling you, why do you care? This is where you can go see live streams. This is where you can go discuss on a mailing list. This is where you can get on a video conference monthly. This is a special interest group for this. This like that could all be rounded up. That doesn't seem like insurmountable at all. So I'll assign myself an action to freshen up the wiki. The OpenStack wiki is there. I think I have edit privilege on that page, so I can try. So we didn't quite move on to eventlet removal. Developers here are aware of things with that. I can't be more specific. I only know what we do, and even there, I couldn't draw you an architecture diagram for where we run our Whiskey service right now. This seems like we sort of need a new kind of operator survey of how do you actually run it in production. The developers want to know, because there's so many options, which ones, if they went away, would cause you problems. Are you aware of these new things? That could be something we worked on. I mean, Ildiko already did one survey where she just asked people about how they find, news about operators things, and the cadence and frequency of that meeting, and that kind of thing. Meetpad. We could do another one with these kind of questions. Be a bit more meaty, I think. I know this is not my meeting, but I can't help the urge to try and get to the end of the agenda.
Just a quick thought on surveys. I also want to remind people of the user survey that we have for OpenStack, and I think it's currently being reworked. So we can also think about what questions would make sense to be part of the user survey, and if there's a way to, I don't know, at the intro section or something, point out that there are operator-facing activities in OpenStack, if there's a landing page or something.
And you think that would get into depth such as Whiskey servers and SRBAC? Got it. There's lots to say, but not much to say in 5 minutes. I will say I try and share the news about these things on Mastodon as well. I still like that. Nothing against Meetpad. Obviously, this is like Zoom. It's great for this. But Mastodon is sort of Twitter-like without having the politics issue with Twitter. I'm sure most of you know, but it's become a horrible place. I actually raised the fact that the EFF abandoned X recently, saying it was not a good place for their organization. I'd raised it at the Open Infra board meeting. I said, this is just food for thought. I didn't actually advocate anything because I haven't even managed to make my own employer not use that place. But hey, a shout out for Mastodon. I have an account called Ops Meetup on Fostodon, where I try and share events like this and their Ops Radio regularly. And obviously, Open Infra has accounts there as well. You know, it is federated, open source, resilient to capture. Seems more important than ever to me, but you know, I'm aware that lots of other people like Matrix or Reddit, LinkedIn, Slack, full spectrum. I'm just going to volunteer. If people want to write to me, my email that I will actually see and respond to is cmorgan2@bloomberg.net. Not that I'm an interesting guy, important guy, but just for the Ops Radio. My Gmail is a wasteland. You're welcome to write to me on my work email. Maybe we can bridge this gap between operators and TC and developer community a bit more strongly again. I'd love to make that happen. Great. Thanks for this meeting, Gautam. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.